Good afternoon, college football fans. It's Thursday, October 9th. Huge slate of games this weekend. Some epic matchups I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, first and foremost, Oregon versus Indiana. It's going to be game day. I live in Eugene. It's here in Eugene. I'm a huge Oregon fan, and it's the biggest matchup of the week, if not the biggest matchup of the year so far for Oregon. Since everybody's discounting the Penn State, win in Beaver Stadium for Oregon, I mean, the line has dropped on the spread between Oregon and Indiana this week due to UCLA beating Penn State. Okay, you want to discount Oregon's win, discount what they've shown and proven because Penn State isn't a top 25 team now, even though FanDuel would have their odds on neutral sites against the top 25 be in favor of Penn State for over the majority of the top 25. If you know ball, you know ball. But Penn State's going to work their thing out. UCLA, hope you get some more wins. You guys need to be less than a bottom feeder. You need to get at least 2 wins in the conference every year so our conference is better as a whole. Penn State, want to see you be elite too. I'm not trying to shit on you at all. We know if you've listened to my other episodes that I put out about Penn State and talking about their toxicity and blah, 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 I actually want to see Penn State succeed. So, fingers crossed, beat Northwestern. Oregon versus Indiana. There has been so many narratives going into this game. We have all the people talking about how, Oregon isn't as good as they thought because of what happened to Penn State and UCLA. Okay, if that's what you think, if you're that easily swayed, Oregon doesn't need your support or your belief in them anyways. They really don't. They don't need any belief or support from the outside media. And Oregon's own media, their podcasters, are so good at actually bringing good energy and analyzing ball in a proper way that they're never caught up in wishful thinking and or entitlement and or blame shifting when something doesn't go right. Oregon has made many mistakes in the Dan Lanning era, but guess what? Lanning and co have learned from those mistakes. So if you think that Indiana is going to come in and beat Oregon in Autzen, go bet it. I mean, you'd make some good money off that if it happens. I don't think that's going to happen. I know ball. I know Oregon. I know Indiana. Indiana's a really great program. They're working on their way to elite, which is almost impossibly hard to believe because they've literally built this little, this program, not little, but they built up all of this potential, and they've been putting out really good performances on the field for the last 2 years since Signetti got there. Before there, they were trash. So to see such a quick turnaround at Indiana is remarkable. And I give all the props and due respect to Signetti and to his team and his staff. But Oregon's on a different level. If Oregon loses the game this weekend in Autzen, something probably went horrifically wrong. There was probably some major injuries. And injuries do affect games. Oregon beat up Penn State so bad in Beaver Stadium that Tony Rojas, the stud linebacker for Penn State, got injured. Tony Rojas wasn't able to play in the UCLA game, and he would have been the guy that would have spied Nico Iamaleava and kept him from breaking out for 100 and some odd yards rushing. Those things matter. So if you're just looking at the X's and O's with the Oregon-Indiana game, it's kind of harder to tell, who is going to be able to get the best of who. But if you're looking at the other factors, the other metrics, if you're looking at the talent and the depth that Oregon has, if you're looking at the chemistry and the connection that they have, if you're looking at the crowd and the factor that they play in getting their false starts or their delay of games when the opposing team's on offense, you're not paying attention to what's really important in what's going to dictate the outcome of this game. So I have Oregon winning. I'm not going to say a score. I just want them to win. I just want them to stay healthy and win. Do I think that they're going to dominate Indiana? Yeah, I do. I don't know how that's going to look, but I think that Oregon is going to be able to show their dominance and their focus through four quarters. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I'll give even more respect to Indiana by far than I already do, which is already a very high level. The other games we have going on this weekend, you have UCLA versus Michigan. Michigan traveling all the way out here to the West Coast. USC and Michigan, sorry. USC and Michigan is a matchup that looks so intriguing to me because Michigan actually has a passing game. They have obviously had just woes with being able to have any type of passing game going on over the last year, a little bit before that too, because they didn't have quite they just didn't have the talent, and they didn't have the mentality to pass. They were so used to bullying guys on the line and getting their rushing yards that they didn't, go into the recruiting and the transfer portal worlds and actually find a guy who could be an elite quarterback until they got Bryce Underwood. And they had to pay like $10 million, I think, at least, to get Bryce Underwood. I think it was around $12 million. Even Dave Portnoy threw down on that fund to be able to get him in there, because they were like, dude, we cannot continue looking like this. We cannot be a one-dimensional team. We have to be able to throw the ball. We are Michigan. There's no excuse for us not to be able to have at least a decent passing game, let alone hopefully an elite passing game. And they're building it. USC is obviously a very offensively minded team, and they have brought up their defense with D'Anton Lynn coming over from UCLA as the DC last year, and really revamped and empowered their defense to come up and get stops. But they didn't always get them, and they got screwed a couple times last year, especially in that Penn State game in USC. USC should have won that game. There was a really horrifically bad reffing call in the fourth quarter that allowed that game to go to overtime, and they lost. So we're going to see if UCLA has the mental fortitude to come through and really play a tough 4 quarters, bring the defense, and put pressure on Bryce Underwood. That's the key to the game. You got to make that young quarterback feel just like he's going to get hit every single time he snaps the ball. And I don't know if USC can do it, but I know that's their intention. So we're going to see a lot of blitz packages. We're going to see a lot of man coverage, because they're going to make sure that they really put the onus on making Bryce drop dimes right into baskets. That's the best plan you can have. And then you just bring everybody else and hope you get to Bryce. You definitely stack the box in obvious run situations. If you remember last year, USC almost beat Michigan. They should have beat Michigan, but they couldn't stop the rush. It was like 2 minutes left, I think, in the fourth quarter, and USC was up, and all they had to do was get a defensive stop. And they had Michigan backed up in their own territory, and Michigan busted out. He went big ass gap right through the line, and the back was off. He made 2 dudes completely whiff, and he got like 80 yards on one run. It was so disheartening for somebody who wants to see USC be, at least close to elite, if not back to elite. And then, having to hear the narratives from all the media as soon as USC has a loss, it's just, I'm so over that. It's been happening since Pete Carroll left. USC, if you think Penn State has it bad, USC has it bad. They don't know how to find great coaches. They don't know how to support those coaches, and they don't know how to have a properly supportive culture. It's always just like, what have you done for me lately? Don't make us look bad. If you make us look bad, we're going to start hating you. And if you make us look bad enough or too bad, we're going to fire you. I think USC firing Ed Ogeron was the dumbest move that they ever made. You couldn't understand half of what Ed said, but the dude was a fucking stud. He was an awesome coach. He is an awesome coach. He won LSU a national championship in 2019. The guy proved he had the players at USC when he was the interim coach there, begging the admins, the AD, to make him the head coach, and he just didn't fit in because he doesn't talk like people from LA are supposed to talk. He wasn't as eloquent, and he wasn't as articulate, and he had that the twang, it was like, what was that, Ed? It doesn't matter, bro. You're a beast, and your players know what you want. That's all that matters, So we'll see. Can SC beat Michigan? I think they can, but I also think Michigan is going to make it hard as hell. Michigan's got that mentality. They are a tough-minded team. Their head coach is really, 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 talented. He's really, really, really confident. and Sherrone Moore, and he knows how to get his team to play well on the road. Doesn't mean that they definitely will play up to their truest potential on the road, but I think that they have the game plan and the focus and the mentality to do it. So I think that game's going to be awesome. Do I think USC will win? I think their wide receivers are going to play huge, as always. I mean, that's, it's granted. But Mekhi Lemon is just extra special. If USC wins, it's going to be because Mekhi Lemon just went off again. He makes insanely tough catches. He fights for every contestable ball, and he's got moves. He's got just insanely nasty moves. So, if you're a Michigan fan, just be wary of Mekhi Lemon. Obviously, I'm sure that's the biggest fear you guys have as a fan base this week. We have some other big matchups. The biggest other one probably that I can think of is the Red River rivalry / the Red River shootout. It's a classic. Oklahoma versus Texas is good every year because they're two teams that have tradition. They're two teams that have expectations. They're two teams that have pride, and they hate each other. They really don't like each other. To say not like is an understatement. And it's been back and forth, 2 years ago, or when Dylan Gabriel was at Oklahoma, he pulled out an amazing performance. I mean, it was definitely his best performance as a college football player up until that point, until he came to Oregon. And Texas is having so many woes this year. It's really mind-boggling how Arch could be so talented and yet just looks so mediocre, if that. I don't know if it's a QB coaching issue. It seems like if they had a qualified and competent QB coach, Arch would be performing better. If it's an injury issue, that makes sense. But if it's an injury issue, why aren't you trying to game plan around that? The O-line for Texas is trash. They have provided absolutely no protection for Arch. And it's the biggest factor, I think, in basically trying to find out why Arch is not having success in the passing game, why he's off. It's because he's rattled. Arch was obviously thinking that he was going to have some sort of insanely stout, very formidable offensive line when he would be starting this year for Texas. That hasn't come to be. If that's on Texas's offensive line, then it's on their O-line coach. And they need to find some way to get their shit together and be able to play together. Because when an O-line isn't playing together well, it's just a freaking free rush to the QB. The QB is going to get sacked. He's going to get pressured. He's going to get hit. He's going to throw inaccurate balls. He's going to throw picks. He's going to miss wide open looks. So, if Texas has any chance of beating Oklahoma, in my opinion, Arch has to get better protection. Their running backs actually have to have some production, having like 30 yards in their game last week. If that, I think it might have been 19 yards altogether. It was like 19 yards on 11 carries. It was insane. That is so freaking horrible. I mean, that is so garbage. It's like, what team from Texas has these rushing numbers? Texas. The Longhorns have these numbers. You couldn't have even come close to predicting that this was going to be the scenario that they're facing at this point in the season, coming into this season, because obviously the national media and all the podcasters had them hyped up as the number one team. They were the consensus AP number one team in the polls coming into the season. And obviously that pressure probably had a factor in helping them fall apart the way that they have, because you either handle pressure and thrive, or the pressure gets to you and you crack and you fall apart. And Texas, this is the week. You either get it together and you figure it out and you get your O-line to start playing semi-decent to good, or you just fucking bench Arch and put in your backup and resign to losing at least 4 or 5 more games this year. Definitely not making the playoffs. Oklahoma, if Mateer plays, which I don't think he will, because you're having surgery on your thumb, is a major issue. They have a really good chance of winning if Mateer plays. I don't know how their backup is. I know he's competent, but I don't know how he is against really good defenses. I don't know how much chemistry he has with the offensive line with his skill players, the guys at the skill positions. But, it might just be a super ugly game. It might just be, basically handing the ball off and having your running backs try to run guys over and find the gaps in the lines. But I think it's going to be whose offensive line plays better is definitely going to win this game. That might sound completely, like absurd to yeah, of course. It might sound very, very easy to assume that. But that is actually the factors that go into determining which one of those squads is going to have some dominance and or dominate the game till the end. Oklahoma has been overrated, in my opinion. I mean, Mateer's numbers are not Heisman worthy, in my opinion, either. His interceptions to his touchdown ratio is horrible. But, obviously the SEC needs to have somebody to wave their flag and say, this guy's the best guy in the country. He's the best player in the country. And he plays for the SEC. Okay. I can't wait. If Oklahoma makes it to the playoffs, I can't wait to see some Big Ten teams smash them. But that's not going to happen this week or anytime soon until, December and January. So let's just say that, best O-line in that Red River rivalry wins the game. When it comes down to the other matchups this weekend, I don't really have a whole lot to predict because I just want to enjoy games. I have opinions about stuff, but I'm not trying to put out a ton of content on teams that I don't care about as much as I care about these other teams that I just talked about, because I really think that what the three games that I highlighted are the big matchups that are going to dictate what's going to happen in the playoff future this year. And obviously the Georgia-Auburn game is going to be interesting. I'm not an Auburn fan at all. I think that they're, an incredibly toxic fan base. And Auburn beat Oregon in the national championship in 2010 that I was at, and did it, with a cheating, rule-breaking, violating quarterback in Scam Newton. If you think that that's ignorant of me to say, you don't know ball, because that dude has straight admitted that he got paid when the reports came out that exact year during the season that his father had demanded $200,000 for him to go to Auburn, and the SEC just swept that under the rug. And they were like, Auburn's going to be the team going to a natty, so we're not going to penalize this guy. In fact, we're not even going to investigate into that because the SEC has to be dominant. Win, cheat, steal, win. That's all it is for the SEC. Just win, so we can talk shit, so we can feel better about ourselves, so we don't have to look at our own existence and reflect on the energy that we put out there and what we're actually doing here in life. Nah, let's just win and talk shit and say we're the best. Well, you guys aren't doing that anymore. So I don't even know how you guys are really coping with the modern college football era, the way that it is unraveled and become what we're seeing with Ohio State, Oregon, Miami being, the elite programs this year and looking like they're actually building stuff that's going to be dominant in the future. And if you think that the SEC going to 9 conference games next year is going to help them out at all, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, I watched 9 conference games get played in the Pac-12 year after year after year, and you had really good to elite teams that would take an extra loss just because of the attrition. Because when you're playing another conference game, you're playing against competent competition. You're playing against guys that actually have the ability to push you, to injure you, to stress you, to make you lose. So instead of playing cupcake you or bumfuck you, you're going to be playing, Auburn's going to be playing Texas. Auburn's going to be playing Oklahoma. Auburn's going to be playing Arkansas. Auburn's going to be playing South Carolina. Those are the things. And then, so that one extra game for every single one of the SEC teams is going to bring their collective dominance even further down, because every half of the SEC is going to have one more loss a year. And since they're so competitively, kind of equal at this point in time, I mean, I'm not saying that they are all equal, but I am saying the performance and the skill sets at the 12th best team in the league are close to the skill sets and the abilities and the performance coming out of the teams that are in the top 2 and 3, maybe even the very top teams in the league. So when you have that type of parity, that it's not dramatic, in fact, it's very close, that it's going to make a lot of teams that would have made it to the playoffs with like a 10-2 record take an extra loss and be a 9-3 team. So if you think that the future's bright for the SEC, you're wrong. But I'm totally open to being wrong about that because I love college football. I just want to see really good teams play really good teams. I want to see mediocre teams become good teams. I want to see good teams become elite teams, no matter what conference they're from. But just don't build it up off of arrogance and ignorance and a tradition of cheating and being deluded that you're better just because you're getting more media hype and or your voters, the AP poll and the Heisman voters, are completely corrupt, biased bitches and or don't know ball. So with that being said, I cannot wait to watch the SEC matchups this weekend and just root for teams to play well and for them to take a loss. I mean, that's what I do as a non-SEC fan, is I really hope for good games. I never wish anybody injuries. I want to see good performance. I want to see good football. I don't want to see corrupt and horrible and inept refs make, games go one way or another or cause a win or a loss for a team that if the refs had just made the appropriate call, the outcome would have been what it should have been. Auburn got screwed by Oklahoma this year. Oklahoma cheated their asses off. They knew they cheated their asses off, but it's funny because when Venables made that move and he had his wide receiver come over and act like he was going to substitute and didn't, it was a deceptive play, which is a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. But he apparently knew or had a lot of confidence that it wasn't going to get flagged and that they would get a touchdown because the dude's going to be wide open. If you can run that play every time, that's going to be a touchdown every time. You know why? Because you're not allowed to do it. So if you do it, and the guys who tell you what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do and enforce that on the field don't enforce that and allow you to just keep on cheating, then yeah, you're going to succeed. Oklahoma is a false number 6. I got no confidence in them in making any type of long run into the playoffs. Mateer's overhyped. He's good. But guess what? He came from Washington State, just like Cam Ward came from Washington State. I've been following Washington State for over 25 years. I know what they do. I also know that the SEC just needs a model, a figure to put up on their pedestal and say, he's a Heisman. We got the best player in the country. He's not the best player in the country. He might be able to scramble. He might be able to throw. He might have really good decision making. He's not the best quarterback in the country. He's not the best player in the country. If you take away his cheating ass touchdown against Auburn, they would have lost. And Mateer's stock would have went boom. But if you cheat and you don't get caught for it, or if you don't get punished for it, apparently you're elite. It's pathetic. And I will call that out every single time I see it. It's something that just keeps on dragging the SEC down. The SEC legacy, the dominance, just keeps getting dragged down by themselves. When Dan Lanning did that play with 12 men on defense against Ohio State at the end of the game last year in Autzen, it was a very deliberate decision, knowing that he was going to get called for the penalty. He didn't think that he was fooling the refs. In fact, he knew that the penalty was essential to it because he was totally willing to give up the 5 yards to be able to run that time off the clock and keep a huge play from happening, especially some pass to Carnell Tate or to Jeremiah Smith. So it was a deliberate thing, and everybody in the nation went crazy for weeks over it. That the NCAA had to make rules to say that you can't do that anymore. That was how big that one play was. And yet it was a 5-yard penalty. And Lanning completely admitted, did you hear Venables? at all come out and be like, oh yeah, well we knew that was illegal, but we just really had high confidence that the refs wouldn't throw the flag. So, it was that type of decision on my part. And look, I came out looking pretty brilliant, didn't I? Dude, you look like a bitch. You look like a loser who had to do something completely illegal to try to get an advantage against Auburn at home in Oklahoma to win that game. It's pathetic, dude. So anybody who wants to keep on talking about SEC dominance, I'm here for it all day. I will definitely try to be respectful when we talk, but if you just come at me with ignorance, I'm going to shoot you down. I'm going to smack you down. I'm going to smoke you. And I'm going to, keep on living my life. It's something I actually feed off. Negative energy is not, it's not great, but when my intentions are to enlighten people and to show them what's actually going on in college football. That's why my podcast is called the SEC Sucks Podcast, because I literally look at the college landscape, at all college football through the lenses of, hey, what if I wasn't biased like the mainstream media and, the traditional analysts, and I just think, hey, the SEC is not the best conference in the nation. Just look at it from that standpoint. If you just have the perspective that the SEC is not the best conference in the country, and definitely not by far, and they are second best, you start to understand who is actually elite in college football. That's why you're seeing the outcomes that you're seeing. That's why you're seeing the playoff dominance the Big Ten is having. That's why you're seeing the national championships that the Big Ten is winning. That's why you're seeing so much mediocrity in the SEC this year, because everybody else is finally able to pay players. When it's an equal freaking playing field like it is now in NIL, SEC sucks. So the SEC Sucks is my podcast. Sorry if you don't like it. I do hope everybody's teams play well this weekend. I do hope that everybody has a great, healthy weekend. Stay safe and enjoy the games. Go Ducks.